Excellence. The new Maison Center of Excellence is where science meets luxury, and I'm really pleased to be speaking to you from the center itself here in Florence. Dedicated to the luxury and premium industry, Maison, in fact, is not only an high-tech physical location and lab, but also a virtual space where people, ideas, experiences, and trends can generate connections and discussions for the future of luxury. With this in mind, we are offering a series of webinars called Maison Sessioni, where different experts, both from Intertech and the luxury industry, will share experiences and insights on the key question in the world of luxury, in order to promote the discussion and the connection between creativity and science. Our first webinar today deals with how to choose sustainable materials in the fashion pipeline, a really key concern to textile and accessory mills. As we know, a company's sustainable attitude starts before this step, and yet it becomes a deliberate action through the choice of the fabrics and accessories. Today's webinar will run around 45-50 minutes, including a short Q&A at the end. So please do type in your questions, and we will get to as many as possible at the end of the presentation. Let me now introduce today's guests, experts that honor us by sharing their experience and their passion. We have two Intertech experts, Kalin Moldovan, President of Business Assurance and Food Services, and Mike Redshaw, Head of Technical for Global Softlines, as well as two outstanding industry experts, Marina Spadafora, Fair Fashion Ambassador and Design and Sustainability Advisor, as well as Michela Finaurini, Fabric and Embroidery Research Expert. A warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us today. Let's move quickly to hear from our Intertech experts, beginning with Kalin, who will talk to us about the role of the supply chain. Kalin?
Thanks, Elena. Great to be here today. The textile sector has been known to have many diverse challenges that range from human rights abuses, landfill clogging, fast fashion and ocean polluting microplastics, to chemical discharge from processing. Throughout the years, the rise of many initiatives like SAC-HIG Index, SEDEX Global, and the Textile Exchange certifications aimed at improving the textile sector. However, the facts remain that textile production emits more greenhouse gas than all international flights and maritime shipping put together. While consumers are buying more clothes today than ever before, we are seeing that they, especially younger generations, are becoming more sustainably conscious all the time. Consumers have become increasingly aware of the negative impacts of their purchasing choices on the environment and are being more sustainably conscious through the products they buy, while becoming loyal to brands who represent their own sustainability commitments. Recently, we've seen many efforts in driving sustainability in textile sector. Global brands are now using their influence to make real changes in the industry by publishing their commitments publicly. They garner public support and accountability. More than 150 fashion brands signed the G7 Fashion Pact this year, and more than 35 global brands have pledged to achieve sustainable cotton within the next 5 years. By encouraging innovation, these brands are changing the way the entire industry supply chain functions, enabling an evolution faster than ever before. In addition to increasing the use of recycled materials, brands are focusing on the use of organic materials like cotton, which decreases the impact on water and chemical use in processing. They are restricting the use of hazardous chemicals, which in turn reduces the risk of hazardous waste. Most recently, a major theme in textile sustainability has become a push for circularity, aiming at improving the end-of-life cycle for garments, finding ways to reduce, reuse, and recycle, and keep textiles out of landfills. Next slide, please. We spoke before about the pledges fashion brands are making to show that there is a demand for more sustainable fashion and that companies are willing to help drive these practices across the sector. Not only are consumers making this demand, but investors and employees alike want to work with brands that are committed to safety, sustainability, and ethics. But in order to claim a product is sustainable, companies need to be clear on who their suppliers are and what practices are in place today to produce the textile. Sustainable fashion needs to be produced ethically, of which there are huge variances around the globe in the regulatory standards the government sets, if any, for their workforce. With higher visibility and consideration for the growing governmental regulatory and legislative conditions and consumer expectations than ever before, buyers need to understand and control the quality of products being imported. We saw this past year how volatile supply chains can be. The disruption of COVID-19 was felt across all industries, proving how important visibility and business continuity plans are to mitigate impacts on supply chains, to build resilience against future shocks. Transparent information is essential to manage risk and ensure compliance with safety, security, social, and environmental standards. Without real transparency in all supply chains, uncontrolled risk can result in false claims, product recalls, and loss of goodwill and brand reputation. From subcontractors and wholesalers to intermediaries and domestic importers, effective oversight and management can be a nightmare. Understanding the complexities, standards, and workplace practices in supply chains are a challenge for retailers, whether they are sourcing from their home market or the global market. Intertek's global goal is to enable organizations to better understand their supply chain risk and protect their brand. Our innovative range of supply risk management audit services provides enhanced transparency. This includes Intertek Inlight and SourceClear, cost-effective SaaS platforms for global companies who require trusted information about the identities, capabilities, and compliance of their supplier partners. Using a supply chain risk management platform minimizes risk and knowledge gaps for global companies by enabling visibility into the different aspects of suppliers, which is vital for success in today's global business environment. Next slide, please. We have been supporting clients from a variety of industry sectors and conducting supplier audits across the globe for more than 20 years to achieve their ethical sourcing goal. During this time, we've specialized in many industries, including developing new audit protocols and being involved in groundbreaking initiatives. We actively participate and contribute to unique projects, programs, and working groups in partnership with clients and industry associations. Our supply chain assurance solutions cover key areas of concern in the global supply chain: social responsibility, security, quality, environment, and sustainability. Driven by data analytics, our end-to-end risk management auditing, training, and technology solutions look at the entire value chain to give context and perspective to a corporate responsibility program, allowing informed decisions regarding the business and to build a culture of engaged suppliers that understand, share, and demonstrate the brand. It's amazing to watch firsthand how some of our customers have embraced their sustainability goals, going above and beyond customer demand to make a real change in the industry and to the world. Sustainability is at the forefront of everything we do here at Intertek. So we're glad to be part of this shift and to help guide the necessary changes to creating ever better fashion that exceeds expectations for years to come. Thank you. Next slide, please.
So thank you, Kalin. Fantastic insights on the evolution and efforts made to drive sustainability in the textile sector. It is really something that is changing the approach from supply chain management to supply chain assurance. And now I want to move to Mike Redshaw, who will talk us about how the fashion industry is meeting new challenges in sustainability through science. Mike?
Okay, thanks, Alina. First, I'd like to say how happy I am to be with you today to talk about the engagement of the luxury industry and the desire to create a more sustainable and ethical product. There's been fantastic progress in the use of recycled materials, but there remain some challenges to their use also. Because if we bring materials from the past into the present, we need to understand their history, may bring some issues which we want to avoid. One of these are the chemicals which were once permitted and now restricted, but another is maintaining the quality of the product, its performance and its ability to take up the colours which we want. And we need to ensure that the fabric is excellent enough to make the high-end luxury products which customers expect. So steps in the supply chain to monitor quality, such as product testing, are key to ensuring that the expected performance is maintained. There has been a huge push to use recycled material for apparel production. In fact, earlier this year, Textile Exchange launched an initiative with the United Nations Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action. This is the 2025 Recycled Polyester Challenge. It's a campaign which encourages a rapid boost in the uptake of recycled polyester within the next 5 years. The aim is for the apparel industry to commit to bringing the percentage of recycled polyester from the current 14% up to 45% by the end of 2025. Recycled polyester has a significantly lower carbon footprint when compared to virgin polyester. It can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by more than 70%, which clearly is a significant reduction. Next slide, please. But why polyester? Well, it's the most widely used fibre in the apparel industry, and Textile Exchange says it accounts for around 52% of global fibre production. And as we saw earlier, only 14% of this comes from a recycled origin. And there are other drivers for using recycled polyester. Mainly, it saves consumption of raw oil. But also, PET bottles are available as a source material from household waste. And this is already a food grade quality, which makes it an important clean raw material. But all polyester looks the same, so how do we know if it's from recycled origin? Well, it is now even possible to test recycled polyester, which has been made from the PET bottle. And the analysis checks a marker which can be placed there during bottle production. And it provides a great analytical solution to ensure the material is indeed being recycled. Next slide, please. But what about other fibres, such as cotton? Well, using recycled or upcycled cotton may be considered even more environmentally friendly than organic cotton. This may be because it limits the textile waste caused by regular cotton production and diverts many products from going into landfill. It can drastically reduce the amount of water, energy and labour which would be required for virgin cotton production. And this slide shows some of the key steps in the production process for the recycling of the cotton. And to summarise, cotton is mechanically broken down and the raw material obtained is then used to produce new yarn. But this mechanical grinding to break the fibres down can also damage them and reduce its staple length. The key concern is that this can impact the physical performance of the fabric produced. Short fibres are not as well fixed into the yarn structure, so when the yarn is stressed, the short fibres slip against each other and result in the fabric breaking and tearing more easily. And it can also impact the handling and the dyeing and finishing process, so this should be monitored carefully. Fabrics which may be from recycled sources should therefore be checked for strength and seaming properties to ensure that expected quality levels can be maintained. And to minimise the impact, many recycled wool and cotton fabrics can be blended with polyester to increase the length of the fibres and improve fabric strength. In summary, the recycling process breaks down the fabric structure significantly, and it is key to check the performance of the material to ensure it meets high expectations of consumers. Next slide, please. We also need to be mindful of concern for the environment to ensure that harmful chemicals are not used or present in the product. Old products may have been produced using chemicals which are now known to be hazardous, and we do not want their past to impact on our current apparel. If recycled fibres are used to manufacture a garment, there should be extra diligence to ensure that any substances which may have been used in the original production do not contaminate any new product. Studies have suggested that it's twice as likely to find restricted substances in recycled than in pre-consumer fibres. So we need to consider this potential risk when looking at repurposed garments as the source. Substances which would be of most concern include chemicals such as APOs, azo dyes, and toxic heavy metals. And so it would suggest that extra surveillance may be needed. And some substances may be broken down during the recycling process and discharge. So this places a greater emphasis on effective chemical management to safeguard the environment. There are initiatives in place which have been promoted to support more sustainable production, and these should be monitored to ensure production is satisfactory from recycled sources. They would cover things like assessing production facilities, processes, including checking wastewater treatment and effluent from any recycling facilities to ensure they are managed in an effective manner. To finish, it would be great to see greater repurposing of materials where possible, and this should be encouraged. And technology is being developed all the time to allow this to happen more effectively. But the key takeaways I would give from this session would be to evaluate materials and fabrics early in the production development process and ensure that issues with possible fabrications with low physical performance can be reduced by effective testing. And the same could be said for chemical management to ensure that the products meet any stringent requirements which may be applied. Thank you. I would now hand you back to Alina for the next part of the webinar. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for showing us the importance of science, technology, and creativity working together all along the value chain to optimize the use of sustainable materials in terms of safety and performance. Okay, now let's move to the next session of the webinar, hearing from our fantastic industry experts. First up is Marina Spadafora, fair fashion ambassador in the world with deep roots in fashion, having had her own brand and collaborated with important luxury brands. She has been the creative director of Autour du Monde, working with artisans all over the world. Professor of ethical fashion at prestigious academies in Italy and abroad, her work has a strong focus on social issues and ecologies. Hence her motto, fashion with a mission. So, Marina, thank you.
Hello, Elena. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. Very happy to be part of this. I think it's a very important webinar, and I will go straight to my presentation. My presentation is about the need for transparency in textile going forward, especially because there is new legislation due to be passed in the European Parliament by the end of 2021. So I will talk about this. And there are a few points that I want to touch, and it's how I'm a designer by trade. And so us designers have changed our point of view on how we choose fabrics. And also we need more information because it's really important to have speaking labels also for fabrics, not only for clothing. And so we need to know where the fabric is coming from. And this kind of attitude comes also from big luxury conglomerates, as well as young startups. The fashion industry, as we know, has lost a lot of business during COVID 2020. Italy alone lost about 27% in this sector. But the sales in sustainable fashion all over the world have raised by 8.7%. It is estimated that the green market will reach 6.8 billion by 2023. So consumers are looking for answers. They're looking for products that are done sustainably and that they have accountability for these products. So the textile sector needs to change and needs to become more traceable and transparent. It's very, very important. Also because it's a very long production chain and supply chain, so we need to work on this very strongly. We have problems, as we know, we've all talked about it. So there is very low prices today for clothes and textiles all over the world. There is increased time pressure for deliveries of poor payment terms. So this is the true cost of fashion today. The environmental damage, of course, we know that every year we come to a day that it's called Earth Overshoot Day, which is the day by which we have consumed all the resources, mostly non-renewable, that are allocated to us for 1 year. It always comes in July. Last year it came in August because of the stop of production. And also this, we use a lot of water, we do a lot of emissions, we put into the environment a lot of chemicals, we lose biodiversity, and most of all, we do a lot of waste. So there was a civil society proposal done to the European Parliament. What is the civil society? It's a broad coalition of social and environmental NGOs that has developed a civil society strategy for sustainable textile, garments, leather, and footwear. This document has been presented to the European Parliament in view of the comprehensive EU strategy for textile expected in 2021. So there will be new legislation put in place to regulate the textile sector. Therefore, it is advisable to start immediately to get the necessary information to gather info and data about all operation in textile manufacturing. The first step in the textile supply chain is the agricultural aspect and the animal one, of course. The one who provide material for the yarns and textiles that the fashion industry uses to create clothing. Assuring transparent information and compliance to legislation in this crucial first phase is essential in order to achieve a more sustainable industry. Can I ask everyone to turn off their microphone, please? I think Michela has her microphone on. So what the European Union can do? So we can have big solutions, okay? We need to have mandatory human rights due diligence for textiles. It has to cover all companies. It has support mechanism for SMEs, mandatory annual implementation reports, disclosure of production processing and manufacturing sites, participation of workers. This is very important because they never get, we never talk to them, and has to cover purchasing practices. So the design process has to be revisited with longevity and circularity in mind. Legally binding requirements for sustainable design. So we need less waste, of course, and pollution, and durable and reusable clothing. Next slide, please. The designer's role, how sustainability can stimulate, I'm now on slide 9, can stimulate creativity. Creative teams can have a key role in choosing fabrics for the collections, based not only on touch and look, as we've been used to doing it so far, but considering as well what the best choice for the environment is. Choosing natural fabrics versus synthetic ones is the first step towards more circular and low-impact collections. It is always better to choose fabric that is 100% of the same material to give a better chance to the garment to be recycled at the end of its cycle. I just want to underline this because mixing, for example, a recycled cotton with polyester will make this garment not recyclable and not, I think, circular as we're trying to do. So it's important also for recycled polyester to be kept 100% recycled polyester, therefore at the end of its life can be recycled itself. If the need for technical textiles arises, there are very interesting recycling options on the market. By using recycled textiles, we avoid using up non-renewable carbon fossil resources and recuperate waste from the environment, such as fishing nets, carpeting, because big brands are now doing this EcoNeil fabric or EcoAlf. There are all these options that are taken cleaning also the ocean. Innovative textiles are offering very valid and creative solutions to designers. Slide 10. Transparency and traceability are essential. So the labeling requirements will change and will require detailed information about every step of the manufacturing process. And this will be mandatory. It won't be anymore on a voluntary base, which is a big key to the whole process. So we would like to see QR codes on clothes that can be scanned and gives us the story. Slide 11, public procurement. Euro 8.6 billion are spent on public sector textile and workwear procurement across the EU. Pilot scheme for mandatory green and fair public procurement. Slide 12, legislation on unfair trading practices in the textile sector. So no short notice cancellations from brands. We saw that during the pandemic, a lot of brands refused to pick up their already manufactured orders and refused to pay for them. So this is no longer okay. No late payments, and the pricing of garments must allow the payment of a living wage. This is very important because today, people who work especially in Southeast Asia, in Ethiopia, in these places where there's very low prices, are paid the minimum wage, which is usually not above the poverty line. So they need to be paid a living wage, which is usually 3 to 4 times more than the minimum wage. Regulating textile to textile recycling so that it will be easier to create regenerated textiles. So a quantitative target for textile waste reduction coupled with a commitment to high quality textile to textile recycling. Promoting circularity by supporting circular business models. So we have to promote durable, high quality, stable and long-term business relationships, but also expand the reuse of textiles by supporting social enterprises and reuse operations. Cooperation also between the EU and producing countries, because the big problem is that we might have a lot of really wonderful laws, but if we go and produce in countries that don't have these laws, the production will probably be done without following these laws, So using, let's say, chemicals that are forbidden here, and then the clothes get produced, they get shipped to Europe, they end up in the shops, they end up in our closet, containing heavy metals and all of this. There is a test being done where clothes have been bought from many different venues, brought to the laboratory, and 3 out of 5 contain chemicals that are not allowed in Europe. Promote EU values in producing countries, so international agreements have to be enforced, and GSP mechanism as well. So this is what the Civil Society European Strategy for Sustainable Textiles and Garments, Leather and Footwear has proposed to the European Commission, has been received, we've been thanked. This is who the 60 NGOs that have created this look like. And we're hoping that this will actually happen. Thank you, and I pass on to my the next guest.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marina. Very interesting for this journey all along the value chain. There are really so many areas to work on, starting from the design to the end life of products, and every single action could contribute to the building back ever better of our fashion world. This is really an impressive project, impressive. Now, I want to welcome Michela Finaurini. Michela is working on the research and development for many luxury brands. She conceives and develops new fabrics, processes with special skills on high-quality fibers, creative development of embroideries, and the recovery of manufacturing techniques from the past. She is really passionate about the eco-sustainability of materials, and this is what she will share with us today. So, Michela, a te la parola.
Thank you. Well, in this moment in time, the pandemic and the lockdown period boost knowing and conscious consumption. And today there is a worldwide desire for a style associated with well-being and protection of the planet. And in addition to aesthetics, apparel is also much about quality and circular economy. So the world of fashion must find alternatives to all the stereotypes. In high-end fashion, the paradigm of second-hand equals low-quality products does no longer apply. So therefore, giving new life to existing products is tomorrow's winning asset. And of course, this transformation requires a cultural change and much more, not only in the business universe. In fact, there is a need for new processes, new finishes, and new skills to be developed. However, one of the barriers to transformation is cost, which should not be underestimated at a time when there are orders which are reduced in numbers. And pricing comes always into play, especially now. And if the largest groups are willing to pay more for a return on their image, the smaller brands will certainly find it harder to invest in change. Therefore, these products will come to the market gradually. Slide 3. So, sustainability. In our world, it has become of the essence to talk about eco-sustainability and sustainability. And sustainability, to me, means a process of change. A process of change involving everyone. And this is something that has always attracted me and stimulated me in exploring an area that I have been researching for such a long time. And thinking about what is wrong with our planet and therefore with our lives. And now more than ever, this brought me to focus my research activity on recycling materials and using various fibers derived from plants and animals, following a precise direction and abandoning older stereotypes. And this does not mean limiting creativity, but rather stimulating it with a new broad range of materials. And of course, it takes commitment, dedication, dealing with creativity and imagination. This enabled me to open my eyes wide to observe the reality that surrounds surrounds me, and craftsmanship combined with the best of innovative technology it needs to be used to create fabrics made up not only of the material, but also including a soft aspect relating to sensitivity, thoughts, ethics, and sustainability. In this way, research and selection of materials become not only a choice that nurtures creativity, but also a choice of life. And every fabric, every fiber has a soul, and as such they must be studied and perceived and respected in order to further amplify beauty. And they will be the bearers of messages for the end consumers. This does not mean that this is going to hinder creativity. But in fact, it has to be imagined and processed to become part of a concrete project. Next slide. So I believe that following this direction, there are no limits. But in fact, well, actually, I personally receive a stimuli that feed my sensitivity like a seed that must be watered in order to grow and develop strength. And my work leads me every day to nourish this seed, both for myself and for the brands I work with. Next slide. So the choice of these raw materials, vegetable, animal, artificial, derives from an intuition, which is a part of the soul made up of interwoven fibers, surprising me every time. There are vegetable fibers like hemp, bamboo, eucalyptus, maize, soya, ramier, extract from horticultural plants, but also wool, which is a 100% renewable and biodegradable fiber, transparent and allowing the skin to breathe, and non-aggressive and sustainable organic silk, because the silkworms are left to live out their full lives and die naturally. Organic silk is obtained, as a matter of fact, by waiting for the silkworm to turn into a butterfly and leave its cocoon and be free to live. And cashmere, precious natural, and byssus, precious natural marine silk obtained from a species of marine clams, but also artificial fibers like EcoNeil and environmentally friendly synthetic fibers made from discarded fishing nets, plastic waste, and many other plastic waste recovered from the sea. And the ability to select and choose these fabrics is definitely an art. Because it's like, you know, a way of expressing yourself to create a work of art. You have to know how to imagine what each fiber can create for you to come to a final unique product. And we have to think that the fabric is our second skin and should be in harmony with the body as well as quality. So in the end, sensitivity, creativity, craftsmanship, and technology are in perfect harmony with the materials, and each fabric becomes a narrative to be told, and I treat them as works of art. And curiosity has always taught me that there are no limits, and it's a bit like the engine that stimulates and sets ideas in motion. And again, sustainability, innovation, creativity, and research take me in an increasingly green direction, but I would like to foster messages on a new sustainable education, giving life to new products and new models of thinking in the supply chains towards a view that is rewarding for all the development processes of the material. Slide 8. So promoting this transformation also requires the involvement of the entire company, starting right from the choice of raw materials and the positive impact on the environment, and also protecting those who produce them, up to a completely new mode of consumption. And this must all be supported by research and technology, and the research laboratories, innovative startups, and the whole sector is full of new opportunities to go green. But it is very much important that we also safeguard aesthetics, functionality, and luxury. More and more brands are approaching sustainable thinking and education. They're capable of respecting the planet, but also they need to protect the health of their customers without abandoning the mix of timeless beauty and high quality. Driving technology, driving innovation by pursuing excellence in fabrics, craftsmanship, and embroidery accessories. This is all important to also convey a clear message to the end customer. Next slide. Well, I fully believe in this philosophy, and many companies in Italy and Europe are making important efforts to achieve effective results. And it's not only enough to be committed to technology, but processes must be integrated into the environment in a true evolution of thought. And textile language is a code. Designing and making a fabric, a finishing process, a print brought me to divide my soul into two directions. And on one hand, ordering my thoughts, on the other, transforming my dreams into emotions to wear. I've always worked thinking of circularity, open to experimentation and making the most of what I have, and also choosing consciously, now more than ever important, in order to use products that are safer for our skin and the environment. So the final garments made from eco-sustainable and organic fabrics do not lack in personality. Whatever the trend of the moment, it is absolutely important that we recognize their strength that makes the message of the narrative strong. So evolution and transformation is the only way to grow, to find new ways by guiding companies towards circularity. There is a wonderful and unexpected world about every natural, organic, animal, artificial material. And this is part of the internal structure of things. And I believe that our generation has a commitment to a sustainable environment, creating human future. This change is in the new code and in a new way of life. The challenge of the next few years for the supply chain will be not just giving new life, because if in the last decade the real challenge was the luxury of having time from starting from 2021, the new challenge will be to preserve our planet, and the real luxury will be to still have a planet for future generations to live on. So I would like to conclude my speech with this following insight: be the energy of what you want to attract, always.
Thank you very much, Michela. I think every one of us felt inspired by your presentation, but mainly by your passion. Sustainability and creativity together could be a new lifestyle to preserve our planet for the next generation. Absolutely. So we have come now to the end of our presentations. And with the time we have, I'd like to try to answer a few of your questions. You've been typing them in, and we will get through as many as possible. If we don't get to yours today, you are more than welcome to send us the question after the event, and we will do our best to answer to you. So I would like to start with Marina. I ask my fantastic experts to please answer in a couple of minutes, because we are at the end of the webinar. So. And this is very challenging for Marina, because this is one wide question. Is sustainability an expansive and difficult engagement? Which is your feeling and your experience?
My feeling is that sustainability is what we need to do, is not what we could do. It's kind of like we've got to a point where it's the option. I won't say the only option, but it should be the only option. because a lot of people say we don't have planet B. So we have to start working towards that. More people, if more people use sustainable and recycled fibers, these fibers will start costing less because they will scale up production. So we need to make legislations and make people understand that this is the preferred way to go forward if we want to leave a decent planet for our children and and their children. So it isn't sustainability, and what I like to call it lately is responsibility, is not an added cost, it's an investment. It's been studied and said by big McKinsey and other big companies that do research that companies that do not invest in sustainability today, in 10 years will lose up to 30% of their revenues. Because the trend for the consumers is to ask more and more questions. We see the youngsters, Gen Z, and what I call Gen G, because it's Generation Greta, that are really going to grow up different people. They're going to be a lot more aware than what we see today, And so these people are just not going to buy things that are not done transparently and ethically. And that's the end of the story. So when brands will see their sales drop because of this, they will change course. I think it's advisable to change course now, because if you do it later, it's going to sound and smell like greenwashing. So be honest, be focused. Really, like Michela said, it's a pleasure to work with this kind of fabrics. Yes, they might be a little bit more expensive. I also have a very revolutionary idea, which is all this clothing that we make today, first of all, is too much. We produce too much, because also there is a study that says sales and production of clothing has risen, and using of the same clothing has declined, which means that people buy things and leave them in their closet with the tag still hanging. And so this is not sustainable. There's too much stuff going around. So the new production, we want people in these factories to be paid correctly, to have decent lives, and not to work until 11 o'clock at night since 7 o'clock in the morning. So regular working hours with better pay. And also the factories have to be not polluting by reviewing all their systems of filtration. These extra costs on a single item that the companies, the brands will have to sustain should not be put on the final price to the consumer, but should be considered an investment in sustainability and reabsorbed within the company, so that a democratic fashion at a good price, that it's done responsibly, will still be available. And those jobs in the South, East Asia, Africa, or wherever we do our production, will be kept, but in a better way.
Thank you. Absolutely. And linked to this, I have a question for Kalin. Based on your experience, on the experience of the entire business line you are leading, which are the main weaknesses in the supply chain?
Thank you, Elena. I can absolutely agree with what I was saying earlier, by the way, but I think in terms of the supply chain, the biggest weakness these days is visibility beyond the first tier of the supply chain. Okay. So we, fashions and brands and retailers spend a lot of time looking at the tier one suppliers. What we are not doing yet enough, in my view, is looking beyond the tier one. And when you look beyond the tier 2, 3, you recognize there's a lot of things happening there. And there's a lot fewer controls, and the more visibility we can gain, and there's all kinds of tools and ways we can do that, and I think that will be much better for the society, because with that visibility comes opportunity for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And one question for Michela. I'll ask in English because I'm on the English channel, but Michela will reply in Italian. What information and what characteristics do fabric researchers look for to feel at ease with the sustainable background and credential when choosing the materials their collection will be made of?
Well, I believe that to identify fabrics for your own collections, when you do it, well, you shouldn't simply carry out traditional research. You should carry out detailed research in the landscape of Italian companies and so that we can help the Italian local chain that has been hit by the pandemic, or in Europe or in Southeast Asia, if it is necessary, where you have many startup companies that have taken big steps forward in trying to identify fabrics in the circular economy, and it's possible to find alternatives for your collections. And there's a big momentum in the field of textiles, yarns, and so on and so forth. But you should also learn, what does it mean? It means also treating already existing materials. There's a long way to go. The important thing is, in my opinion, is to follow a structured direction, to see the overall picture, and from time to time assessing the impact of the choices you make. And consumers play a fundamental role, because if consumers ask themselves questions about the state of things, it's the only way to change. Also, research for materials. I believe that the real challenge today is to, first of all, making what already exists degradable, apart from testing new materials. And for a green future, I believe it's important to think how to dispose and recover what seems to be simply waste. And details should be considered. There are details that should be duly considered if we want to be participants in eco-sustainability. And we have to continuously circulate information so that buyers can make a fully informed choice, and this can be obtained with a high degree of attention. And we should also use competencies and creativity when choosing the best fabric for your own collections and identifying the right supplier, always paying attention to certifications provided for by the manufacturer, and also be some sort of certification entity in a way, and assess the origin and the chain using recycled fabrics made by companies protecting the environment and respecting workers. That's the point. Without using up the resources of the planet in a fair way, that's the only way for final consumers to buy eco-sustainable products, authentic products, and to also having made an ethical purchase. And
thank you. I totally agree. And I want to finish with Mike. Mike, the question that I summarize some questions in one. The recycled materials need to have a specific testing protocol, or we can apply the traditional ones, we have to insert something. Just a couple of advices.
Okay, yeah. It's probably not necessary to have specific testing protocols for recycled materials, but it is probably more critical and more important to carry out some key performance tests. And an example of that was what I touched on in the presentation, such things like tensile strength, tearing strength, seaming properties, because of the impact of the lower length staple fibre. But one that I didn't touch on as much in the presentation was pilling.
Yeah.
And studies have shown throughout many consumer groups that when customers buy product, one of the things that they get most frustrated about, and one of the reasons that they take product back to retailers, is because of pilling performance. And one of the challenges that we have, that because we have that lower length, fibre length, is that we need to ensure that we test and have reasonable pilling performance. And then the other point that we touched on in the presentation as well was the chemicals. So it's key to make sure that we do not have those chemicals within the product. Marina touched on that studies have shown that there's a higher prevalence of substances in recycled materials, and other studies have shown the same. And taking on from Khaled's point in the answers that he gave, it also becomes critically important when you're taking product from beyond that first tier of suppliers. If you don't have visibility of your supply chain, you cannot have visibility of the materials. And that's when testing and that level of assessment becomes critically important.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. So thank you for all your questions, and thanks. Thank you very much to all our speakers. We hope you have enjoyed the session today and look forward to bringing you more in the future. The webinar will be available on demand tomorrow, starting from tomorrow, Wednesday, from our website. So if you want to re-see, you will be able to download it. And please get in contact with us if you have any question, or if we at Intertech Maison, where science meet luxury, can support you and your business in the future. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.